The Calgary Flames might not have the first overall pick, but they are finally cracking the top 10, which is the beginnings of where we want them to be.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me here today. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play Store or Apple Store, or App Store, rather. I hope you are all doing well. Today, we are here to unpack the results of the NHL Draft Lottery and what the Flames are going to do moving forward, because as we know, this team is finally accepting they are in a, transitional phase, whether you want to call it a rebuild, a retool, tinkering, whatever. We're here to talk about that and the Flames priorities today here on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. The Balls chose the Flames future, and they're going to be selecting the 9th pick overall. This is the Flames' first top 10 pick in quite some time. I believe it's the first one since Sam Bennett back in 2014. So I'm just very, that's quite some time. I don't know if the Flames have made really any progress in that time. I don't have a lot of, good thoughts about their previous drafting. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett are great players. Do not get me wrong. Sean Monahan's even in there. But what are you going to do? Like, the guys on this list, they traded away, or they're all retired, or just not here. And that's tough. And the Flames have never had higher than the 4th overall pick. That's a very long time for you to not have a top 3 pick. And there's such a difference in caliber of talent. And I know people are going to say, well, it's still a first round pick. Okay, Sam Honzek was a first round pick last season. Are you telling me he is of the same caliber of a Connor Bedard or any of the other top 5 picks from last year? Come on now, be serious. But I do want to kind of go over who, like, some of the past first overall picks are this year. It's more than likely going to be Macklin Celebrini. Obviously, a top 5 draft pick does not mean like you are guaranteed, a game changer, or the trajectory of your organization isn't necessarily going to be changed, but it is very likely. Obviously, 2023 was Connor Bedard. Year prior was Slafkovsky, Owen Power, and then 2020 is Alexis Lafreniere, who just scored the first goal in the Rangers-Canes game. Jack Hughes, Rasmus Dahlin, Nico Hischier, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, Aaron Ekblad, Nathan McKinnon. Like, the list goes on and on. And you know why you need those guys. And we talk a lot about how the Flames are going to have to acquire these players, because it's not necessarily an attractive trade destination at the moment just for the state of the franchise because they are in a transitional period. So your new talent and your top talent is going to have to come from the drafts or trades. And the Flames are, they do have a lot of draft capital this year and next year. So maybe things will hit. There's no way of telling. Nick calls it the magic beans all the time. Like, you don't know what you're getting with the bag of mystery beans. With the draft capital that the Flames have, they really do have more chances of or probability of hitting better players, but they can also miss because just because you play in the first or get drafted in the first round doesn't mean you're guaranteed, a spot in the NHL someday. Not everyone, I should say, has a smooth transition from amateur to pro hockey. We've seen it time and time again. I am glad that the Flames are cracking the top 10. I don't want that to be lost because a lot of people, including other media members, said the Flames aren't drafting in the top 10. So why does it matter? Why does it matter if they, why should they tank? Why should they phone it in? I mean, there were definitely opportunities for them to lose more and to potentially move up. But this is actually the first year the projected draft rankings or draft lottery outcomes didn't change since 2010. It's a very long time. And I'm happy that once I saw like the Flames, like they announced 16, they announced 15, they got to like 13, 11. I was like, oh my God, the Flames aren't here. This is great because they have been in that chunky, soggy middle in the teens for so long. And look what that's gotten them. And coming up next, we are going to talk about more of this transitional period and what the Flames can even do, what they can offer, potentially, what they're looking for. But first, we are going to take a quick break here, and we will be right back after this. Game off. We got to pause right here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vault. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, you can follow me on X at Jess Belmosto. When we started this season, or I guess closer to the trade deadline, I would say, we got a much clearer picture of who the Flames are, what direction they want to go in. And it was very nice to see them finally declare a direction by trading those pending UFAs, by shopping their goaltender, who would have brought in a haul of a return. It could have been prospects, it could have been draft picks, it could have been both. And they really capitalized on the Elias Lindholm trade. They got Kuzmenko. They got Brustowicz and first round draft pick. So, like, there's an example of one thing they've done right. They've done a lot of things right, don't get me wrong, but like most recently, this is what comes to mind. And this is where they start taking those baby steps. I don't even know if you want to call it baby steps. Maybe they're still crawling. But they have declared that they want to retool, rebuild, recalibrate their roster. I don't know what you want to use, but that prefix works, okay? And I believe it was Conroy talked about wanting to emulate Dallas. That is going to be very difficult to do. And we talk about extremes, right? We talk about Buffalo's rebuild taking an eternity. We talk about Ottawa's rebuild, and they just continue to dig themselves a deeper hole. But then on the other end, you have teams like the Rangers who got very lucky with Panarin signing there in free agency, Trouba's trade, winning the draft lottery in 2020. There were a lot of key factors that went into that, as well as Dallas drafting as well as they did. And I think Dallas is the easiest one to kind of want to emulate because they had similar contract structures, right? Granted, they only had Jamie Benn and Sagan's contracts that they really needed to, build around. If I remember correctly, Ben Bishop was retiring or career-ending LTIR and then retiring. They had the flexibility to do that. And then, they get players like Hakanpää, Miro Heiskanen, Jake Ottinger, Wyatt Johnson, Robo. Like, all of those players are star players and quality players that you can count on to do their job and then some. You are starting with Huberdeau and Kadri, maybe Jacob Markstrom's contract too, if you want to throw that in there. And yeah, your drawing board isn't as clear, and your scouting staff clearly isn't on the same level either. And that's not a knock to the Flames. Everyone assembles their team, their advisors, their scouting department, however they see fit. And I don't necessarily think that it's all like a general manager decision. I think a lot of the times we see friends of ownership find their way into these roles when maybe there are more educated people out there that could make these decisions. And Dallas is just incredible when it comes to drafting. The fact that no one drafted Wyatt Johnston, like, I understand that hindsight is always going to be 2020, but I look at the Bruins because they had drafted Fabian Lysell 2 picks before Wyatt Johnston. Fabian Lysell may be an NHLer. There were high hopes that he was going to be like the next like Pasternak. Delusion. But anyways, everyone develops differently and every farm system is different. Like, I obviously cover the Wranglers, and they're a very competitive group. They are a competitive group, and there's that fire underneath them, and they have that underdog mentality, which is great. But when you don't have a number of players coming through the system that are, pegged to be these players, like Connor Zary and Martin Pospisil, we have talked about them to no end this season, rightfully so. And both of them popped when they got called up. And sometimes that just happens. Both of those players weren't expected to be and NHL regulars this year, but they were able to get their footing underneath them and they took off. You don't always have that with other players in your organization, and it's a matter of luck as well as that immediate chemistry and confidence. Like there are so many factors there. And it feels like the Flames are just shaky, and they don't have the stability of putting together the strongest options. And of course, how are you supposed to get the strongest options when you are consistently drafting in that weird middle spot? I mean, some teams get lucky with it, but you're not going to be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not going to, like, that's not always the case, basically. You know, there are some later draft picks that pop off, like Dustin Wolf. And you have players that go undrafted that will end up being, you know, that story of undrafted free agents and whatnot. Like there has to be systems in place in order for the Flames to succeed. And they have to evaluate that themselves, because we can sit here all day and talk about how the Flames need to get better and how they need to be better scouting. I will talk until I'm blue in the face. However, does the organization realize that? Or are they still in that area where it's like, no, we can absolutely acquire people through trade, or, you know, our drafting is so great. Matt Coronado is good. Obviously, he was your 2022 pick. He had a great season with the Wranglers. It was a little bit shaky in the NHL, but, you know, he was coming out of college, not the same caliber and workload as the NHL. And then you have Sam Honzek, who really struggled with injuries this year, and he was playing on his wing and center, and like he's just a big dude. Every team has their own priorities, and it's a matter of aligning your priorities with your organizational needs. And we're going to talk more about the priorities here to wrap up the show, but I did want to just talk about a tweet from reoccurring guest James Johnson of the Win column, and he really put things into perspective for, I think, a lot of people. Under 30 top 5 drafted centers in the Pacific: Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, Cutter Gauthier for Anaheim. Edmonton has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. LA has Quentin Byfield. Seattle has Beniers and Shane Wright. San Jose, Macklin Celebrini, expected, and Will Smith. Vancouver, Elias Pettersson. Vegas, although he was traded to them, you have Jack Eichel. You know who Calgary has? No one. They don't have anyone that fits that. They didn't draft. They haven't drafted that high. And a majority of those teams either made the playoffs, had super strong runs in the regular season, or they're getting better. And Calgary's just there. And they're starting their process. But coming up next, we are going to talk about what I would consider the Flames' priorities here on Locked On Flames. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break, and I want to talk to you about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can also assemble great parlays. I bet on the Bruins and Panthers game last night. It was the easiest money I have ever earned. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you're getting your podcasts and join in on the conversation over on our YouTube channel, Locked On Flames. Oh, boy. Every organization has priorities, of course. Some teams like New Jersey or the Kings they're probably looking at goaltending, but they're not looking at the draft for that. They're going to be looking at the free agent market, the who's on the trading block, things like that. And then you have teams, that short-term, medium-term, and long-term goal. Or like right now, short-term and long-term goals. And Nick and I talked a lot about that this season and how you have to segment this. You have to have different benchmarks. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to properly address and analyze these picks because, you can't. Because, if Ottawa picked number 1 overall, that's great. But, you've been doing this for how long? You should not be picking. You should not have the best odds to win the lottery. San Jose, kind of creeping into that area, maybe tiptoeing. Listen to Locked On Sharks. JD does a great job, and I'm sure he is over the moon about the results tonight. But the Ducks, they're kind of there too. Vancouver has gotten there. They took their lumps, and they got there. But they addressed their needs for the interim and then the longer-term picture, because it is so unlikely that the player you are drafting at the end of June, I don't know what day, I think it's the 26th or 27th, is going to be NHL ready come summer. Unless you're the top 3 pick. But again, you look at Slavkovsky, and he wasn't ready for the NHL. He had to do some time in the AHL. You look at Shane Wright. He was a top 5 pick. Went from number 1 to number 4. Things happen. You aren't guaranteed that smooth transition or even a successful transition at all. And when I'm looking at the Flames, I think that the prospects that they pick, these 18-year-olds, are players that still need some time to cook. They still need a little bit more time in the incubator. They are not ready to make that leap yet. But then when it comes time for them to make that leap, they might not be there. One reason or another. It's tough. Look at Rasmus Anderson, and he talked about how Ryan Huska had to whip his butt into gear because he was a fat, lazy, slow kid coming in to the Flames organization. Some players need that, and you turn out great. Others just don't have the work ethic for it, or your skill just doesn't transition. It doesn't do it. The Flames, it's immediate and a long-term concern for me, really, is the center depth along with the defense. The Flames do not have a solidified 1C, and I have been saying that since I started covering this team back in 2020. Okay? Sean Monahan, what were you supposed to do with busted hips and wrists and ligaments? Couldn't do anything there. Elias Lindholm, he was good. Obviously he played well, but like is a 2C on a good team. Backlund, not a 1C, fits perfectly on that third line. And then Kevin Rooney, I love Kevin Rooney to pieces. He is a local guy from my hometown, and like, how can you hate the guy? But he's a fourth line center. That's where the room dog is. The Flames need to address that situation immediately. Connor Zary, second, third line center. I do not see him as, a Kopitar or a Patrice Bergeron, any of those kinds of, like, he is not at that level. And that's fine because he fits other needs. But when you have a team that is built around redundant skill sets where no one gets elevated, there is not a player on this team where I'm like, number one. We shouldn't be arguing who the best player on the team is. I should be able to say, I don't know, a random player, Mackenzie Weegar, best player on the team. Obviously fantastic at defense, great offensive game, plays a great defensive game. But then there's also people who will chime in, well, Jacob Markstrom was the best player because look at what he did for you. Like, those conversations are fine, but I feel like you need that definitive player. Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. Those were your guys. And now you don't have them. That Jenga tower fell apart. And you have to rebuild it. You lost so much in Gaudreau and Tkachuk. You didn't pick up that mess. You thought you did, but you kind of swept it under the rug, threw a Band-Aid on it. And then you lose Lindholm, more so Tanev and Hanifin, I would say, simply because the defensive abilities that those guys have are not easily replaceable. Chris Tanev, they do not make defensemen like him anymore. He is like your 1997 Toyota Corolla, pushing like 250,000 miles. He was your older cousin's first car, and then your older sister's, and then it was yours. Now you're getting ready to pass it down to like your niece. Like, he has been through it all. And it plays a very specific style that you can like kind of get out of Mackenzie Weegar. Noah Hanifin, good defenseman, and obviously brought that offensive ability. Wasn't afraid to shoot the puck. Obviously, Elias Lindholm, good 200-foot player. He can handle things both ends of the ice. Good forechecker. And now you're looking for someone to take your faceoffs. And it's okay to be concerned with this. Like, just because you're criticizing it doesn't mean that like you're a hater or it's negative. Like, there are glaring issues with this roster construction and the organizational structure, and that's why the Flames are at where they are. Every team runs into this at some point. It's just a matter of when and the severity. Because sometimes, yeah, you can get away with plugging a few leaks here and there and getting better along the way. Other times you have to rip it down all the way. You have to rip it down, trade everyone away, launder some money to, well, now I guess Utah or Chicago, and that's that. And the Flames, they're still in the thick of it, and that's okay because it will be worth what is on the other side, and I will have you covered through this entire process here on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And you can follow me on X at Jess Belmosto. And until tomorrow, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay hydrated. Have a fantastic evening, and go Flames, go.